Digital Pilipinas, bringing together the world's industry leaders in a multi-month movement of innovation and nation building to solve the country's age-old problems with technology. Technology can be our nation's strength and advantage as we showcase Filipino tech expertise to make a lasting impact on the country, influence change, and foster inclusion through technology and innovation across local and global spheres. To do this, Digital Pilipinas champions a 12-point agenda that provides solutions while leveraging on ICT-driven opportunities. FinTech, GovTech, and RegTech. PropTech. Digital transformation. Overseas Filipino banking. Future of mobility. InsurTech. E-commerce. Cybersecurity. Internet of Energy. Future of education, digital cities, gaming. The 12-point agenda will be our guiding star as we trade with trust, encourage cross-border collaborations, e-commerce, open finance, and work hand-in-hand with national and global tech leaders. Digital Pilipinas is a legacy in the making. In 2019, Amor Maclang, FinTech Philippines Executive Director, and Geyser Maclang Marketing Communications Incorporated co-founder, led the Philippine delegation in the Singapore FinTech Festival. In 2020, the country joined the ranks of emerging leaders in the largest event for global tech innovators, the World FinTech Festival. Now, Ms. Maclang, the appointed convener of the World FinTech Festival Philippines, is taking it a step further by gathering the brightest minds to establish the roadmap of the country's technological future with Digital Pilipinas. In the coming months, we will create the Digital Pilipinas Blueprint. It is a whole-of-nation, whole-of-society, whole-of-business approach with national leaders, foreign partners, and the private sector. Filipinos are at the heart of the ASEAN digital revolution, with Asia as the sandbox of innovations. With Digital Pilipinas, our nation will collectively break barriers, tech up industries, and go beyond what seemed to be impossible before. Watch out for our different events and programs in the following months featuring Business Without Borders, Real Estate and PropTech, EduTech, InsurTech and HealthTech, Environment and Sustainability, Diversity and Inclusion, Esports and Gaming, Cyber Defense and Cybersecurity. Get ready to join our biggest initiatives during the Global Impact FinTech ASEAN Conference, the Risky Business Series, the World FinTech Festival Reduxes, the Singapore FinTech Festival, the Next Generation Leaders Conference, culminating in the launch of the World FinTech Festival Philippines in November. Join the movement and be part of the country's digital revolution. Contact us by email and through our Facebook pages to learn more and be part of the Whole of Nation, Whole of Society platform for global and local prosperity. Digital Pilipinas is supported by the following partners and prime movers in innovation and nation building from the government and private sectors. Join the movement today. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Mabuhay ang Digital Pilipinas.
So far, this has been an amazing day of discussions about fintech, e-commerce, cybersecurity, and digitalization. While we are nearing the end of today's event, it certainly is the beginning of the fintech and Web 3.0 revolution. Join me for the next and final panel, which in my opinion is a refreshing way to conclude the World FinTech Festival here in the Philippines. We'll finally hear from women in innovation, finance, governance, and technology, inspirational stories from women who broke the glass ceiling. Turning you all over to our moderator, John Aguilar, serial entrepreneur, creator, and host of The Final Pitch on CNN Philippines. Welcome back, John.
Thank you and welcome everyone to the final panel for today. I'm John Aguilar, and it is an honor and absolute pleasure to virtually stand alongside the women leaders in this panel. They are living proof that women have what it takes not just to be part of the fintech Web 3.0 revolution, but to lead the way and make the digital future we all dream of a reality here in the Philippines. Before we go to the panel discussion, let's give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Vivian Yuchenko, President and Director of First Resources and the Philippine Stock Exchange. Ms. Yuchenko.
Good day to all the attendees. I am Vivian Yuchenko, and in 1989, I broke the glass ceiling by being the first female president of a stock exchange in the world. The 1980s were the days of shoulder pads and miniskirts, and women beginning to assert their independence. I was a newly separated single mother of two. I had started my brokerage in 1979, only to be swindled by my partner in 1981. It was a difficult time. Back then, the Philippine Stock Exchange was split into the Makati and the Manila factions, Makati being the new business district of the time, and Manila, the old. In both cases, the exchanges were run by the Old Boys Club, made up of brokers who were either the founders of the exchanges or the children of the founders. I grew up with the Old Boys because of my family's business ties, but it did not mean that they gave me a free ride. In fact, they were tougher on me and other women in the exchange. So when the late Myron Papa convinced me to run as president and I won, despite some old guards attacking my run, I knew I had a challenge up ahead. Myron and I were the first to unify the exchanges in its initial stages. We formed a joint listing committee when previously each exchange had its own. We realized as early as then that there was a need to work together and to professionalize and maybe even become one of the future. And while I was the first female president of the exchange, I was also the last. During my term, I laid the groundwork for professionalizing at least the Makati side and appointed its first professional president, the late Juan B. Francisco, who trailblazed it for all the other professional presidents that followed. Today, being president of the Philippine Stock Exchange is, if I may brag a bit, a coveted position. It was also under my watch that we computerized the exchange, giving our members a real-time price reporting system. No more relying on the blackboard. Yes, we used to use blackboards with chalk. And being a woman and fighting your way through the horde of men competing with you was a feat in and of itself. I faced institutional resistance for my plan to unify the exchanges. It was not just an institutional fight, but also a real estate one. The Manila side wanted to be in Ortigas area, which they wanted to develop as the new central business district, while Makati side was already in the established central business district. Each side liked being a separate kingdom, and so to unify required a lot of campaigning, convincing, and literally putting my life on the line. My children, both of whom are now in their 40s, will tell you it was not easy for them. It was they who bore the brunt of my seemingly never-ending fights, such as the PSE unification and shareholder fights that I found myself in the middle of because of my position in the exchange. My mother, a single mother herself, with whom I lived and who took over my role as their more involved mother figure, cried many times. And my eldest daughter, who convinced me to speak today, used to, as she likes to say, eat death threats for breakfast. This from the ripe old age of 14. In 1987, before I became even president, I fought one of the country's oldest companies. Without going into details, the former management planned on using shareholder funds to their own ends. And so I promptly put on my battle gear and went to war. My family and the media who wrote about the fight got death and kidnapping threats left and right. And even on the day of the shareholders meeting, I heard I was to be banned from entering the venue, despite representing the shareholders. Luckily, there was a sympathetic employee who let me in via a secret entrance. The rest, I say, is history. We won the fight. Later, I went on to fight more efforts to fleece shareholders and the threats continued to escalate. By then, of course, my kids were used to it, and we laughed about them over dinner. I had to have my phone line swept regularly as we knew they were being tapped. I had to get bodyguards and change them often so no one knew my schedule or got to know me, my family, and my routine too well. The unification of the two exchanges to the institution now known as the Philippine Stock Exchange finally happened in 1992. Still, both exchanges were in different business districts. Yet another bloody battle I had to fight. But at least we were one, and at least the Philippine capital market would be one price, one market, and one direction. The PSE became a founding member of the East Asian and Oceanian Stock Exchanges Federation, and in 1994 was accepted as the 37th member of the World Federation of Exchanges. We were finally on the road to internationalization and modernization. In 1996, we finally achieved self-regulatory status, and in 1997, we went totally scriptless. In 2001, my dream was realized and the PSE became totally demutualized, a self-regulating organization. While working on the PSE's development, I became consumed with fighting for shareholders' rights. I knew well that our market could not grow if it continued to be seen as an old boys club or a gambling casino. I was not popular with those who sought to manipulate the market, but it was necessary to bring the industry I came to love as my third child to respectability. Over the years, I have fought dozens of shareholders fight and blocked the most unscrupulous of persons from entering the exchange. I have fought politicians, big business, international banks, a sitting president of the republic whose friends decided to manipulate the exchange for their own ends. I led a walkout that led to a revolution which even came out on CNN. When a coup plotter threatened to attack my exchange, I threatened him back. In one particular tragic fight, my lawyer was killed while walking in the street. His killer was never caught, but I know who he is, and well, karma catches up. In many instances, I fought the country's business elite, and for this, my family also suffered. My kids were taunted by their friends. Our family friends took sides. It was difficult, but I always believe in what I call the principle of the thing, and for that principle, I am willing to fight and to even lose those nearest and dearest to me. I don't believe in allowing those I love to live in delusion, even if I must lose them for a while in making them see the light. They always come back in the end, or so my experience has been. It was also during these battles that I learned who was the most important, those I could and could not count on. If there's one life lesson I must impart to you all today, it is to recognize who these people are in our lives. I am also, as the PSE staff will tell you, notorious at board meetings. I don't mince words. I am not afraid to curse, and I am known to fight men on the board like a man. One tried to hit me, and I told him to just do it. I think he realized then that I was a woman and backed off, but not before it was recorded to the official minutes. Only recently, at the onset of COVID, I got messages that I would be killed for insisting that the PSE stay open despite the lockdown. To fight back, I had the messages published in a newspaper. I don't run from fights, I take them on head on. To survive in the PSE, to thrive in what started out and built itself as a man's world, I couldn't be scared. I couldn't be sensitive. I had to fight hard. I had to be tough. I had to show that my gender did not make me softer. We were and we are equals, full stop. This attitude of mine was what led to one journalist calling me the Dragon Lady of the PSE, a title of which I am very proud. Just the other day, Wilson C., former chairman of the stock exchange, messaged me. He said, and I quote, "Indeed, your willingness to serve and unwavering love for PSE has never waned all through the years. How can it wane when I am more passionate about my industry than ever? And experience did not tire me, it refined me. Fair warning to those who dare fight me, and I spew fire, and at 70, more seasoned and with much more hindsight, my aim is so much better." I hope I have not shocked all of you. This is my story. Thank you for letting me tell it. But before I go, and still first and foremost, being a mother, I still have so many dreams for my third child, like to democratize the exchange and see more Filipinos and even foreigners investing in our country. I want to drive innovation in our industry to reach more people. There are more than 100 million Filipinos. If I could even have 10% of our population investing in the PSE, then my job is done. I think this forum is important in seeing that the dream fulfilled. So thank you for having me here, and I hope one of you can help me do it. My best wishes to one and all.
Thank you for that wonderful talk. That really set the scene for today's discussion, which wouldn't happen if it were not for our amazing panelists. So I will welcome them all right now. So join me in welcoming to the screen my good friend, Ms. Ida Tiongson, President and CEO of Opal Portfolio Investments Incorporated. Hello, Ida.
Hi, John. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Singapore FinTech Festival and Guys from Aklang and Digital Pilipinas.
Ida, please tell us a little bit about what you do. I know that you are involved in a lot of initiatives in a lot of companies. You are one of those people I know personally who inspire a lot of women. And I'd like for you to give us a sense of your involvement in these different initiatives that you're currently engaged with and are a part of.
Thank you, John. First, I'd like to show a video about the women in tech.
Everyone needs to have 1. The right skills, 2. Be mobile and flexible, 3. Be tech savvy. Women have disadvantages on all 3. In many regions, especially in emerging economies, women lag behind men in educational attainment. Women tend to be less mobile than men. Technology gives women flexibility and new ways to make a living, but they have less access to technology than men and fewer skills to use it. Old challenges are added to new ones. Women can be successful in the automation era, but they will need concerted help and creative new solutions to help them thrive in the work of the future.
So how can women break glass ceiling, especially in tech? About myself, just like Jack Ma, my background is really not tech. It's really accounting, finance, governance. Started as a traditional banker with National Australia Bank and eventually Philippine National Bank. I spent 22 years and I'm blessed enough to have been pirated by an ING foreign company called Opal Portfolio Investment, AMC, SPV, which is kind of long. And what we do is we handle distressed assets and turn around businesses. It's a multi-billion company. And since I got into that, this is where I developed skills in fintech, digital transformation, and artificial intelligence. Spearheaded a credit algorithm. It's a digital credit algorithm, and been part of the Philippine task force doing the national ID. To date, I've been helping out several large companies doing their digital transformation to be able to bounce forward. Present, I am also a board director of the Philippines' only technology company, Surpass Inc., helping them move forward as well. Board director of PruLife UK, going into artificial intelligence, and Sidin Technologies Inc. It's the largest in the Philippines on the fintech P2P platform. In addition to that, I also teach in ICD, finance, digital transformation, audit, risk, governance, strategy planning. I also teach in Ateneo about the businesses, also World Bank, IFC, so kind of everywhere. Affiliations, yes, I'm a trustee of FinTech-PH, FinTech Alliance. I'm also a trustee of Institute of Corporate Directors, chair of the technology. So question, how did I actually break the glass ceiling? I'm actually wondering, have I? I suppose passion and guts. If someone says it cannot be done, they probably have not tried it. So I go for continuous learning. In the last few years, taken master classes in artificial intelligence. Actually, that was only recently. Blockchain, cyber, and happy to recently completed with you, John, the Alibaba entrepreneurship, right? And
Correct.
so, yeah. So I go to the point on never stop learning.
Yes.
Back
So
to you.
you never stop learning, and we also never stop learning from you. So Ida, thank you very much for giving us an insight into all the things that you're involved with. Truly, truly inspiring woman as well. And up next, we have all the way from the US, Yang Zhang, the managing director of Send It Philippines. Hello, Yang.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Glad to have you here. And might I add as well, new mother. It truly is a privilege to have you here, because we know that you're actually on maternity leave. So, that is, as I'm sure you will attest, the more important function and job that you have right now, Yang.
Definitely the most challenging job I've ever had.
Yeah, so Yang, please give us an idea of the milestones that Send It has achieved recently. I know that there are a couple of big things that have happened the past months. So why don't you share with us the things that have been happening over at Send It?
Sure. I think a little bit about me. I'm the managing director for Send It Philippines. I'm really happy in that role to be able to lead the regional expansion for Send It, especially as we kind of look across the region as well. I think that for Send It's definitely been an exciting few months, kept me on my toes during maternity leave as well. We recently announced two really big pieces of news. The first is that we had our unicorn round. So we raised about our Series C, putting our valuation above $1 billion. This follows shortly after we announced a strategic investment in DragonPay, which is one of the oldest, most respected payment gateways in the Philippines. I think it really speaks to our commitment to going really deep into the Philippines market. I think on our side, we're really happy to be able to promote female leadership across Send It. We're actually one of the few startups across SEA at this level. And of course, I think one of the only unicorns to have a female co-founder. And I think that in general, what we like to do is to promote that kind of vision across all of our ranks.
Thank you very much for that, Yang. So I'd like to move on now to our next panelist, Margarita Locsin Chan, co-founder of Women Leading in Innovation, Finance, and Technology, or WeLift. Hello, Margarita.
Hi,
I say
hi,
Tat?
John. Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, Tat.
So WeLift is a very new organization that Amor and I have founded. Like she said, it started in 2019 as a dream. We had other names for the organization, but some were a bit, how should I say this, scandalous. So we were joking. We were like a coven of witches, and creating all these things. So and it came from there. My background is in my latest life. I was a banker that set up a Philippine bank here in Singapore. But previous to that, I was in communications, and I did most of my work in a very hardcore industry in cement, which, as you know, is very male dominated. So I've always been, I've always been surrounded by men and undaunted by them. In fact, I feel much more comfortable, to be honest, in their company. I always used to say I like being in safety shoes and jeans more than I do dresses. Dresses are a bit hard for me. It's only in the last 6 years that I started to learn. But the reason we came up with it was because I, as a banker here, I was with the financial, and I continue to be with the Financial Women's Association. And that's where I really got involved in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And I was telling more about it. So we need to really build a society in the Philippines that's more interactive. We saw a few, but a lot of it was talks but not volunteerism. Here, what I was telling Amor was people really get engaged and involved, because we don't have a staff, actually, when we in the organization I'm in here. So a bank president is carrying your tarpaulin to the next event. We don't have the luxury you have in Manila. So it's that kind of thing. And I said, that kind of love also fosters the belief and the passion, right? Because you're so deeply involved. And so I said, let's create something like that. More than just speaking, more than just creating events where people have lunch, do something really deep and get people who have the same passion as we do. So that's how that came about. In my other life, we're also helping I help out with the Filipino overseas community here because of my previous role in the bank. So we're helping set up the Philippine Chamber, which we hope will be set up soon. And I also sit on the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industries Philippine Singapore Business Council. I'm the chair, so I try to foster more business and investments between Singapore and the Philippines. And yes, so this is my passion. This is my passion project for my life is diversity and inclusion and overseas Filipinos, which when you look at it, especially here in Singapore, we have a lot of IT professionals that are Filipino. So it forms the core. It forms a good core for us.
Yeah, so but we're glad really to have representation from a strong, a powerful women in Singapore. It's a pleasure to have you in this panel, Tats. So up next we have Gretchen Largoza, CEO of AdSpark. Hello, Gretchen.
Hello, John. I'm thrilled to be here.
Nice to have you here. Gretchen, please tell us about AdSpark. I know that it is under the Ayala Group, and it is a very, very powerful way that brands, companies have reached out to the digital space. So why don't you tell us, Gretchen, about AdSpark?
Sure. So I am the CEO at AdSpark, and it's one of the portfolio companies of 917 Ventures. And 917 Ventures is the biggest venture builder in the Philippines. AdSpark is a full-service, data-driven ad tech company accelerating digital and mobile advertising in the Philippines. At AdSpark, along with my team and I, we help brands create human connections through digital and more intuitive advertising solutions driven by the company's in-depth understanding of the Filipino consumer. And on my end, I've been in marketing communications, specializing in digital marketing for around 20 or so years. So before AdSpark, I was one of those overseas Filipinos. I was in Vietnam with a multinational company, and before that, I was in Indonesia. So I've been out of the country for the past 14, 15 years, and this is the first time I've worked again here in the country, and I'm excited to bring what I've learned in the region back home.
Well, we're glad to have you here. This reverse diaspora really has given a lot of, I guess, new ideas, new innovations into what we do here in the Philippines. And the rest of Asia and the world are taking notice. And I love the fact that we have such a diverse panel joining us here today. Thank you, Gretchen, for joining us. And okay, let's get down to it, ladies. I would like to ask the first question, and any one of you can answer this. So the first question that I have is, what are technology companies doing to level the playing field for women in this largely male-dominated industry?
Okay, can I tackle that one?
Go ahead, Ida.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of challenges. First and foremost is it's really hard enough to get or find right tech talents since the whole world is really looking for them, no? Let alone actually get women. It's a bit of a pity that to date, there are still a lot of male graduates in STEM compared to women. And hence getting women in the first place, not that easy. I mean, let alone any talents, or either a male or a female. If I could just kind of in a way rephrase the question a bit, sorry, let me just rephrase the question a bit in terms of why are there only a small percentage pursuing at the top level? Why only few women? And what are being done to help promote women in tech or STEM? Happy to say that we need it because of these challenges. We need to get more women that can actually accomplish the work, since there's only a few. In fact, statistics worldwide is only showing 11%. So I've been involved with Women Biz and now CD, ICD, and that sort of thing. There's a lot of programs we've been doing, one with DICT, And we call it Elevate IDA, and I'm the one taking up the data and predictive analytics, helping the indigent women trying to survive and change into a different model. In ICD and in called the Now CD, Next Generation Corporate Directors, we're also helping out to get more women in the boards. For schools, I've been noticing like Assumption College, they've been promoting STEM. There's companies like Felta Industries into robotics, and they've been really pushing hard and promoting women in robotics. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Ida. Anyone else would like to add to that?
I'll take a stab at it. One of the things that I've seen, especially in my career, is that tech companies should really increase the visibility of female role models. For example, Ms. Yuchenko earlier, she was the first woman to do that. I think we need to be able to talk about it, share it, and really educate people. And this practice will usher a way for other women to take notice, because it would only take one woman for the others to follow. And we need to be able to pioneer programs where shifting to innovation, tech are available that's coupled with training, mentorship, and leadership programs. I do believe in adding to what Ida said, it's access technology is key.
Thank you for that, Tats.
I think, if I may.
Yeah,
jump
please,
in.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Yang.
I think that from the point of view of a tech company, what we think about the most is not only tech recruitment, but also tech retention. And I think that especially when you think about what would retain really strong women leaders within a company, a lot of it comes down to making sure that the equality isn't just for equality's sake, but in fact, you're respecting the fact that having a more diverse workplace, having a more inclusive workplace actually brings more perspectives to the table. And so I think that, at our heart, Zenda's always been a product-centric company. We think customer first, we think about building new products. And ultimately, when you're doing that, having more women at the table actually just brings different perspectives. I think a lot of times when you think about things like fintech, it's, for everybody. It's not, it's not that, men would use a different e-wallet than women. It's not that men would want different payment channels than women, right? And so I think even when you think about designing the most ideal user experience, you actually need those female perspectives at the table to make sure that you're designing a product that covers everyone. And so I think a lot of times when we think about, how to level the playing field, a lot of that comes down to making sure that women feel heard and also that they're not there to be tokens. And so ultimately, for the roles that we have, we want to remove gender bias as much as possible, especially in the engineering roles. We want to make sure that, in those roles, we're not just recruiting female engineers, we're recruiting female engineers the exact same roles that are open for male engineers as well. We also want to make sure that we're equalizing pay across the board. I think that, on a biannual basis, we're always looking at, our pay scales, making sure that we're normalizing across not only gender, but, across levels, across, experience, just to make sure that, we're taking a second look after the actual recruitment process happens. And then finally, of course, and as we mentioned earlier, I'm on maternity leave right now. I think that a big part of our company culture is trying to make sure that women feel that being on maternity leave doesn't actually make them fall behind in the workplace. I think it's making sure that, for us, maternity leave is essentially unlimited, right? You choose to strike that work-life balance so that you don't feel that as a woman, you're penalized with making the choice to have a child. And so I think in a lot of ways, it comes down to, one, making sure that women feel that they can find that work-life balance without, sacrificing anything in their own career advancement. And then two, supporting the fact that, women can rise through the ranks without having to face, pay inequity, without having to face anything in terms of, having to fill a different role than a man. And then finally, three, of course, making sure that those female perspectives are included even in the final product.
Thank you for sharing that. Tats, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, well, I agree with the three other points of view. But my one thing that I want to really focus on is mentoring. As Gretchen said, you need just one role model. And actually, there are a lot. People are just not aware sometimes of what people have achieved. And so they feel bogged down or they feel disenchanted when they're faced with, as Yang was saying, sometimes you're in a company and they don't feel like they don't understand you, so you feel attacked or provoked. But if they see other people have done it, that's why it's really important for women to come out, not just women. I actually all sorts of minority, what we term as minorities, and vulnerable people to come out and say, this is my experience, I survived it, I was able to do it, you can too. Because if they see someone else, then it's not so daunting. So mentoring for me is a huge part of what we hope to achieve with We Lift, hence the name We Lift, because we want to lift people up. We want to push people up. You don't want to be a crab. You want to push the person out and let them explore and let them grow. And the whole point to getting together as an organization is really to enable people, to give them that.
Right. And I think as a segue to what you said earlier about what you do now being Beyond Talks, I think it's time to get into the weeds now with some of the progressive policies. I'd like to ask if there are more progressive policies you have either implemented, observed within your ecosystem that support women in innovation, finance, and technology. We could go with you, Tats, or anyone else who would like to share.
Well, here in Singapore, I mean, we are very blessed that the government is really supportive, and it's across the board. It's not gender specific, and I've also noticed that a lot of the companies have become more flexible. You know, while COVID has been horrible for the world, I have noticed that companies have also become more open. Things that companies didn't look at before or used to frown at, especially in terms of women, maternity leave, things like that. They usually, they roll their eyes and say, oh, she's going to go off again. But now they're realizing, because they're opening up the flexible work arrangements, that people can be productive. Mothers can be productive. You just need to give them that additional support, or you just need to make it, being considerate, actually,
right.
Making sure you're not booking meetings at, at 3 a.m. I mean, in reality, it shouldn't be a normal thing, because people should be more understanding of time zones, of cultures, that it's, for example, it's Deepavali, it was Deepavali the other day. So things like that. I think it will make us more, because of COVID, the world will become more sensitive to all these things. Things you used to take for granted when you go to the office. Now we will have to be more sensitive. And I see this time actually as a time for us to change, to improve, and to be better.
And Tats, as an honorary woman, I am a man, but I can, from experience, tell you that because of COVID, I have had now a much more, intimate appreciation for the things that my wife does. My wife is a very strong woman, and I have appreciated all of these, 1.5 years now, all the things that she does, specifically because she's my business partner, but at the same time, she does a great job with taking care of us. I mean, us men, we are useless without our partners. I can tell you that for a fact, right? So that's why my hats off to all the women out there who, I wouldn't even want to say balance, but who are able to more than fulfill, in fact, do really great at doing all the things that they have to do, despite the challenges, especially now with this pandemic. So, this entire panel is proof of that. So I think.
John, can I chime in on that one?
Go ahead, Ida.
Yeah. First, your beautiful wife is amazing, Monica. Okay, so back to the question in progressive policies implemented within our ecosystem that support women. Okay, 97% of the businesses, sorry, I'm into stats, 97% of the businesses in countries like Philippines belong to the micro, small, medium enterprise. And guess what? 54% of them are run by women, more than men. So there's a natural advantage in having the women convert into digital because that's one of the bounce back method for you to survive in this pandemic. So what has policies or what has our government done? Happy to say that our government has done a lot. There's the implementation, as I earlier mentioned, the national ID, the national QR now, payment systems, government centralized portal, the digital banking licenses, updates in the e-commerce, open to sandbox, recognition of the open finance and the application protocol interface or API. You know, our government has been, in effect, been doing everything digital. So with that, coupled by women being pushed more into that. So that's the ecosystem is being built, and hopefully with all these women rising up, that will in effect help the economy.
Ida, since we're with you and since you also teach in the Ateneo, I'd like to ask from your personal perspective, how can the educational system better prepare women for careers in technology, innovation, and finance?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm into stats. So first of all, this is actually first world stats, but it's nothing different from kind of like the world in itself, no? How come when they're in kindergarten up to the 12th grade, 47% are liking computers and technology? How come when you're into the senior management level in technology, it's now down to 11%? So, and I totally agree with Gretchen and Tats, young, you know, you got to start them young. And they mentioned about mentorship. I totally agree with that. And the mentorship that actually starts at home with the parents, especially the dads. Do not deter the women, the kids, the young ladies in the STEM or technology. And then their school, in terms of the mentoring and then eventually the workplace. So yeah, I totally agree with the mentoring.
Would anyone else like to add to that?
You know what? That's one of the things that I like about the ecosystem that I'm part of now. I've only been here for 9 months, and what I see is it's quite progressive in the way we're looking at things. There's so many women inside the Globe ecosystem, and they're mostly leaders. They are leading the telco business, the adtech business on my end. FinTech is led by a woman on GCash. Our health tech, one of our health tech is also led by a woman, and even our platform plays. And I think that was one of the things, being one of the biggest companies here in the Philippines, really shows that we women can do it. And mentoring is pervasive. That's why that was one of the things that I talked about earlier, is that I've been now included in our mentoring program for leaders. And I'm quite thrilled to be part of it because they usually include women or people who would only be here maybe 2 years, 3 years, and have only not been here for even a year. So I think that's the change that Globe is doing, especially for women in our company. And I would love to see that more in other companies. And I agree with Ida. If a girl shows an inclination, a specific STEM field when they're young, help her explore it. It definitely starts at home. And it will do sound as a cliche, but it's about really breaking those gender stereotypes. And we're still talking about it now because it's still prevalent. So we need to also be able to educate parents and teachers that there are other careers that are in technology, innovation, finance, that it becomes so ordinary.
You know, Gretchen, I'm quite familiar with what you do over at 917 Ventures. You were part of our TV show, The Final Pitch, last season. And I'm quite curious to ask you the percentage of women in your organization right now. I know that I think the organization has only been in existence for about maybe 2 years. So, and I do know women who are there, but can you give us a percentage? Because I know it's very progressive over there at 917.
Very progressive. Let me talk about AdSpark. At AdSpark, it's around 60-70% would be women.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, okay. Definitely progressive.
There you go. I think the tide has shifted. I think, and you know, there is this statistic, I don't have the exact number, but they're saying that women-led startups actually fare better And
32%. 32%.
32%. There you go. Thank you, Ida, for giving that exact figure for me. So I think that is just, I think 917 is doing a good job. AdSpark, I think, is, you know your figures, you know your numbers, you know the statistics. So I think that is case in point. So congratulations, Gretchen, because I know that a lot is happening over there. And it's good that the ship is being steered in the right direction by the right people. So anyone else would like to add to that?
I think to build on a point that Gretchen mentioned, it's very much about giving women hands-on experience, right? I think that in terms of understanding the career paths that are available in tech, something that the educational system can really help provide is, you know, what those career paths might be, but then also the opportunity to actually experience those through internships, through work study, through co-op programs, actually giving young women the ability to step into a workplace and see what it's like to work in tech. And I think that in a lot of ways, when you think about, you know, how women can break the glass ceiling, it's really becoming more and more empowered to speak their mind, to make sure that they can walk into a room and not feel intimidated by the fact that maybe they will be, you know, outnumbered by men in that room, especially in the boardroom. And so I think that in a lot of ways, if we are able to open up these career opportunities, and you know, the best way to do that is for women in positions, you know, in higher positions now to be good mentors and to accept female interns, to make sure that we're reaching out to local schools, local career preparatory programs, and to make sure that we're bringing in women who are interested in kind of those mentorship opportunities. But I think by giving those sort of experiential, you know, hands-on, I guess, opening up those roles, it makes it a lot easier for these women in the future to actually move into a full-time career in tech as well.
Tats, would you like to add anything?
I just had a thought, John, since you are a producer. The other way we can really promote it is through producing shows where we see women doing. Usually, what happens is it's very general, right? All these real life shows focus on the unusual combinations. Have women or people who are not, and not just women, people who are not usually in that career, put them there, let them experience it. And you can produce something that then inspires other people, because it's really through media that you can change people's perceptions, especially parents. We were, was saying we need to go to the parents, and that's true. Don't you notice parents will say, oh, my son will become an engineer. But what if your daughter's very good at it? I have a 9-year-old who is excellent at building things. And so while her brother would like to be an engineer, I told her, you can do it too. You can be two different kinds of, there are many kinds of engineers. So you can do it too, because she sees in 3D. Whereas her brother is more of a numbers person. So it can't be done. And that's why I've been introducing them actually to other people I know who are in those fields. I force them to have dinner with me. They're only 9 and 13, but they go to adult dinners where they meet other people to get inspired. I said, see, uncle like this and auntie like that does that. After that, like, oh, then they go online and they start to, and so, I mean, to be honest, my son is 13, but he's already looking at what university he's going to because of older people who he's met. And he sees that kind of inspiration. And it's the same with my 9-year-old daughter. She sees inspirations. And then and she calls them even auntie or tita. Oh, tita like this does this. If she met all of you tonight, she'd be like, oh, Tita Ida does this. So I want to do that too. And that's how you get people interested. And you have the power, John. You're in TV, you have the power to do that. Because TV is still a very powerful tool. I was just in a talk a few days ago about the elections in the Philippines and the most powerful tool to use for campaigning, and it's still TV. So I think that's something we can look at.
Well, I agree, Tats, and let me now get to the next question. I think this is our final question. We don't have much time, but I'd like to maybe as a way to be able to also recap today. What are some of the best ways women can shift into technology and innovation careers? And I'm asking this from each one of you who maybe has had that talk with that woman or that girl or someone who has maybe paved the way for someone else to probably follow in your footsteps. Perhaps Ida, maybe we can start things off with you.
Yeah, when Margarita was saying about the civil engineering, I actually did civil engineers. My first course, I lasted 2 weeks. I was the only woman. I needed to shift. I was intimidated. Anyway, back to the question. You see, there's a demand in technology. So if there's a demand, there's going to be a supply. Women must look for that demand and move into that shift. So, these days, the barrier, the intimidation and that sort of thing, a lot of the learnings are done online. So that actually has already helped out. My key takeaways for women: think global, not just local. Know the demands of the market, get latest information, keep learning, make your product be known in the market. Of course, that's digital marketing for you. And of course, I want to mention this. I encourage you to join organizations, most especially FinTech Philippines Association. Thank you, John.
That's a great question, John. And what I would tell these women is that it's not about what you studied. I studied fine arts when I was in college. And then after college, I told my dad, could I study programming? So I took up programming and I did that. And what matters most is what you make out of it and that you tried something new. And up until now, there's still moments of doubt and not knowing what comes next is the beauty, the ambiguity of it. And discovering yourself and what you can do is the most exciting part. And I always remember what my mom would tell me, it's always to be authentic and practice self-care, whatever that means to you. My mom, my grandmother have always been the proponent of change in my life. And I think that was one of the things that's always been one of the things that worked for me. It's not about the seat on the table, it's about creating that particular table. And I've always learned that not to offer an apology when I'm convinced that I have done nothing wrong. And I always put together a very strong women mentor behind me, supporting me because they have different experiences. And what I do is that with these experiences I learned from all of these women, navigating in tech, in advertising, in marketing, etc., I'll be able to get valuable advice from different perspectives. So that would be my final thought, is that always find multiple women who can support you, who will share their own experiences in navigating this world. You'll be able to get valuable advice from different perspectives.
Thank you very much, Gretchen. Here we have Yang Yang.
Yeah, I think that both Ida and Gretchen made really good points about, how we can best support other women. I think that what I wanted to do is share a couple of experiences with young women who have joined Zendit and kind of made a transition from the original career path into a more tech-focused one. And I think it really comes down to being willing to put up your hand. I mean, they always say, you dress for the job you want, not the job that you have, right? But really it's you volunteer for the job that you want, not the job you have. And so I think that in a lot of ways, there's a culture at Zendit where, people multi-hat, because even though, we are a company of 600 people now, there's still that startup mentality where people can wear multiple hats and do roles that go beyond what their role says on paper. And so I think that one particular case, there was a young woman who joined us as a customer success rep. And she came in and, decided after a couple of months that she was really intrigued by product and really wanted to do more. And at the time, we actually did not have the resources in-house to rebuild our entire onboarding process and customize it for the Philippines. And so she said, you know what, I deal with a lot of customers. I will take this on. And so she basically became our representative on the ground for new user experience, which is what we call, everyone who signs up and onboards and goes through KYC. And so really with no experience, because she was really interested in tech and really wanted to see what it was like to be a product manager, she kind of did all that work from her existing role. And 6 months later, when an associate product manager position came up in-house, she transitioned. And so I think that for me, that really is what I feel to be one of my proudest moments, right? That I was able to kind of give that path to her and also to support her in her journey to try to cross over to a role in tech. And so I think sometimes people, not just women actually, but everyone thinks that getting into tech requires a lot of hard skills, a lot of special training. And in a lot of cases, of course, that's true. You're not going to be able to just go from, working in the front office to becoming an engineer overnight. But it all starts with that first step, being willing to volunteer to do something outside of your comfort zone, being willing to say, hey, I think I have the chops. And so the other example I have is that my chief of staff came in with really no product experience, not having really worked in tech before. I remember early on, we had these conversations where, she was like, I'm not really sure if I'm, a product person right away. But I think in a very short period of time, really was about being able to attend all the meetings and ask all the right questions afterwards, not feeling intimidated about, wanting to learn more about things that she was not familiar with right away. And I think that, again, in a short period of time, she's now, really able to hold her own, even in really technical conversations. And so I think that, if I could leave the women watching this with one message, it's really just take the leap. If there is a role that you want, if there is a topic that you're interested in, even if it seems like something that you would need years of training for, or if you see people having really technical conversation, a lot of jargon that you don't understand, just ask questions. Find somebody who's willing to answer those questions for you. And I think before you know it, you will be in the role that you want rather than the role that you are today. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you for that, Yang Yang. And finally, Tats.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Yang Yang, Gretchen, and Ida. It's really taking the leap and starting from somewhere better than just doubting yourself. I personally speaking, I was prior to 2012, I was not a banker, and why I was in comms, and I was thrown into the job, and people doubted me because banking is a very institutional business, right? It's like a club. Basically, you need to be from a certain bank and all that. And one of the luckiest things I got was my membership at the Financial Women's Association. I went in and I was very honest, as Gretchen likes to say. I was very authentic. I admitted. I said I haven't been in financial services since the Asian crisis in 1997 when I left the stock exchange, and I was so traumatized by the fact that the market collapsed. And so I actually volunteered to join the mentoring program. And they all looked at me and they said, you can't join the mentoring program. You're the boss of your company. I said, and so I haven't done this for 20 years. And they said, stick with us and we'll teach you. And you know what? All those women, all their energy and their expertise, they're the ones who taught me for the last 6 years about banking. So everything I learned from my women mentors at the Financial Women's Association. They taught me. Every time I had a problem, I would call one. I don't understand this. Can you help me? And that to me was invaluable. So you find other people like you. It could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be anyone who gives you that energy. And my husband likes to say that I like to go out and I have so many friends and I like to absorb people's energy. I'm happiest with other people. I think that is something we all should learn to do. Absorb the positive energy from others. Learn, go to talks, go to events, even if it's online. I know it's harder now, but go and absorb the energy, absorb what they can teach you, learn, go online, watch podcasts, watch videos. And there's so much knowledge out there and so many things to stimulate us. But you have to also want it and want to go and get it for yourself. Because now it's a bit harder with COVID and the fact that we can't see people. So the energy is not immediately beside you, unlike in an office, right? So motivate yourself and then get other people who's there, lifting you up. That's why I love the name. Actually, the name of the organization came to us just a few days ago. And we're like, that's the name because we want to lift people up. And so we have to all lift each other up, whether it's women, men, anybody. You need to bring people up and those people will bring you up. Everybody lifting each other up, we will create a giant building. If you think about it, right? That's how you build a building, is by each floor. So what I want to tell people is get mentors, get good people around you, positive forces, absorb their energy, absorb their knowledge. In fact, on a personal capacity, it's hanging out with all of people like you, that comms person to turn into a banker. I personally am taking a second postgraduate course in cybersecurity.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's because I hang out with all of you, and it's, I want to learn more, and I have some plans in my head with regards to the OFW community. So I put it all together, and I said, let's do this. And I'm middle-aged, but who cares? I'm having so much fun in my classes, which, by the way, is actually delivered on an online platform. We're not even in the same country. It's amazing. Had I had this when I was younger, I would have been a better student. So yeah, absorb it. Take advantage of everything we have now, of all the technology. It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm more excited than my kids, I think, about going to school now. So take it, grab it, embrace it, and then join all of us.
So this was certainly an inspiring and profound conversation. I expected nothing less from this panel of incredible women leaders. Before we wrap up this insightful panel session, I would like to invite to share a few words the woman champion of Digital Pilipinas in Geyser Maclang, whose movement now transcends borders. Ms. Amor Maclang.
Thank you so much to our honorary woman, Mr. John Aguilar, a champion of technology, investments, entrepreneurs, and also startups. I would just like to, I don't even know where to begin. I'm absolutely moved at the narratives and the conversations and also the sharing. And this panel is extremely personal to me. And what we hope to do is not just to wrap up, because this is obviously just the beginning of a journey of advocacy that we will all do together. First and foremost, I'd like to take exception to my partner and co-founder of WeLift. That's Miss Margarita Loxian Chan, whom of all of you have known her the longest, and we just reconnected some 20 odd years ago. And this advocacy to be able to create a platform for women in innovation, technology and finance is something very personal. Being a horrible math student, which is why I ended up being more of an advocate rather than an engineer. But a very important component of our advocacy, truly, beyond the thought leadership, is the education component. And following the lead of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, our partners, the NUS Affinity, which is our digital identity partner, and Elevandi, we're going to take on this advocacy of bringing in micro certifications for women. And so none of the credits dissipate. It will all be on the blockchain. So the blockchain, I'm happy to have Yang Yang here, who I met also in another conference, and we have been friends ever since. Yang Yang is a native in the space. I remember when we first launched the Blockchain Association of the Philippines, which is now transformed into the the Decentralized Ledger Association of the Philippines. And it's great to connect with women and to keep in touch through various journeys and various milestones in our lives together. Ida, you have our commitment. We are going to continue to help each other, not just in good times, but also in bad. And I'll never forget the kind of generosity and support that you have extended in my good times and also in the bad times. And journeying with you in governance and also in technology. I mean, Ida always talks and preaches about governance. And this is an advocacy that we will continue to reinforce in technology and startups in the country who, up until recently, defined governance as a more make sure I'm not in jail, right? So governance for young leaders in technology is going to be a very important pillar for us. In this panel, we are all women, sisters, and daughters of each other. When I was listening to the opening speech of Ms. Yuchenko, thank you so much, Tats. You already warned me and said, Amor, my mom doesn't do public talks, but because I'm a woman, I was ready to beg or cry. But definitely, I don't take no for an answer, especially given the fact that I know it's for a great cause. And I believe that we inspired many women, beginning with that heartwarming keynote from Ms. Yuchenko. Ma'am, our commitment to you is together with the rest of the women in this group and using the Digital Pilipinas platform, we will promote the Philippines as a hub for investment for technologies, starting with a project with a Board of Investments of the Department of Trade and Industry. This month, we will be launching the Pioneering Technologies Program, and one of our poster boys and girls are actually from ASEAN. And you have our commitment that if during our time, Tats and my time, you've seen the diaspora of the exodus of the best and brightest of Filipinos to the rest of the world, it's going to change during our watch. And what will happen is now the reverse diaspora of some of the best and brightest of the world choosing to domicile in Asia and also in the Philippines. So you can expect us to continue to darken your doorsteps until you say stop, especially when it comes to promoting the Philippines in a global space, especially in investment, welcoming more investments in technology. Just a month ago, I had a call with a superpower, a Western superpower, who told me, Amor, what can we do for you in the fintech space in the Philippines, in open finance? And guess what? I never get tired of telling this story. I said to this gentleman, sweetly, if I may say, sir, you have 10 digital licenses in your country. In Europe, you have 15. Guess what? In Asia, we have 40 digital banking licenses. Asia is the largest fintech. The Philippines is an important hub for fintech and for open finance. Shameless plug, we're going to be launching the OB Exchange, Open Banking Exchange, this week in the World FinTech Festival. So it felt good saying it as a little brown woman and as a brown Asian to a superpower, saying, you know, we're good. Actually, what is it that we can do for you? So on that note, you have our commitment to carry this advocacy forward, work tirelessly for it, not just in bringing in more investments into the country using this platform, but to work towards the day that we will not have to celebrate via a panel women in technology and finance. Thank you so much, John, and thank you for continuing to advocate a digital Pilipinas in our lifetime. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Amor. Now, that was certainly an amazing roundtable discussion. To hear from all of these successful women leaders is a gift. And I thank all our panelists for sharing with me your incredible insights and advice. I bet the next generation of women tech leaders are in our audience right now. Thank you once again for joining us for the final panel of the World FinTech Festival and for driving your own women-led revolutions in your companies. Thank you everyone once again for starting this chapter with us. This has been John Aguilar. Maraming salamat and mabuhay.
Indeed. That wraps up the World FinTech Festival. But again, this is only the beginning of a life-changing Web 3.0 revolution. As certified FinTech professionals, you are now armed with more knowledge to help create the digital and tech-up Philippines that we all dream of. Let's turn this dream into a reality today. Thank you for joining us for the World FinTech Festival, the global version of the Singapore FinTech Festival in partnership with Digital Pilipinas Initiative. Have a good day, everyone.